Hello, this is the next suggestion that I have for the Grid Trader series. This suggestion is to close everything at certain equity targets. So where the previous suggestions that I've tried have tried to limit the entries to the grid, this suggestion actually is trying to limit the total drawdown by periodically just closing all of the losing trades. So if you look at the chart, and this is the chart from the original Grid Trader, which does nothing but buy and sell at every level, you can see that there's a growing gap between the equity and the balance. Now, while the equity is still rising, and in the end this did make a profit, and there are drawdowns that seem to be manageable, you will be paying swap on the trades that are open. And if you think about the gap between the balance and the equity and look at the area of that gap, that gives you some idea how much trade total is open. And so you'll be paying swap on that total area inside that, growing triangle area. So if we can cut down on that, that will reduce your total swap expense. And the strategy tester doesn't model the swap for you. So when you look at the profit from the strategy test, you're just looking at the price movements. You're not looking at the running costs of holding these trades. So it's a worthy objective to reduce that total swap cost. I don't know how well this is going to work. It does seem like an intriguing idea, and it will give something of a sawtooth look to that balance line as we reach those equity targets. What I'll do is write the code. Now, the code that I'll write today is just to get this running. If you want to run this live, there are some extra code that you will need to write to deal with some things that happen in a live system that just are not relevant to the strategy tester. But I just want to get this running first and see how it goes. And then in a follow-up video, because this video is going to be too long otherwise, I will show how you can write the code to run this in a live system. Now I'm in the MetaTrader 5 editor, and I think that everything I'm going to do today will also work for MetaTrader 4. The last update we had was version 1.004. I'm going to make a new version, and I'm going to base it from this version 1.003. So that's the basic Grid Trader without any further modifications. So I'll just make a copy of that to 1.005, and then we'll move on with the code. So now I've copied the folder 1.003 to a new folder 005. I've just changed this line in the main Grid Trader code. So that will now open the main file from 005. And in this main file, I've just added a new comment. And if you ever want to track the history of how these various changes have happened, then you can see here in the history that I write that this is skipped 1.004 because 5 is based on 3. I've updated the version number and the magic number to match. And I think in terms of setting an equity target, the first thing I'm going to need is an input for that target. So let's go to the input file. And I'll just add it after the level points. So the input equity target, I'm just setting a default of 100. So that if you're a US dollar account, that'll be $100. This target is going to be the profit in your deposit currency. So what I'll be seeking to do every time the equity rises by 100, I'll close everything and start again and wait for the next time it's gone 100 above that last point. The equity isn't related to individual legs, so it's not a buy equity or a sell equity. So I think most of the changes I will be making will be in the main file and not on the individual legs. If I'm going to track how much the equity's increased, I need some way of knowing where I started with the equity. So I just grabbed from account info double the total account equity at the start of the expert. And then in OnTick, I'm going to need to test each time to see if I've reached that equity target. Okay, so far I'm grabbing the current equity each time I go into OnTick. I'm calculating a profit, which is the difference between the current equity and the original equity. And then I'm saying if that profit is greater than or equal to the equity target. Maybe I should have called it a profit target, but I didn't. And so here, if that has happened, what I want to do is close everything. Now, I think that means that I want to put a close method on the buy leg and the sell leg. So I'll probably put it in the base class for the leg. It also makes me think that the choice of close all earlier, if I just go to that. Yes, this choice of close all as a function name may have been ill-advised. I'll worry about that later. For now, I'm going to go to the base leg, and I'm going to add a close method that will just close everything. I'm making it a virtual method in case I decide to override it later, but at the moment I have no need to override that. So what I'm doing here, I'm starting out with a result that I'm setting to true. I'm looping through all the positions by using the position info.total -1 as the starting point until while I is greater than or equal to 0. I'm using the select by index for index, symbol, magic number, and the position type. And if that doesn't match, then, or if I don't get a select there, I'll continue, which means I select the next position. I get the ticket number from position info ticket, and then result ampersand equals trade.position close for that ticket. So at the end of this, if any of those have failed, result will be false, and then I just return result. Now, as I've typed that, I realize INP magic isn't anywhere inside this leg base class, and it won't be because the base class itself doesn't know anything about the inputs. So if I try to compile this, which I typically do just for a syntax test, I expect, yes, I get an error on INP magic. I'm just going to leave that for now. I'll worry about fixing it later. It will still work when I compile everything from GridTrader because the inputs will be there. But at the moment, I can't just compile that one file. But for now, back to main. It means that at this point where I've detected that I want to close everything, I can call buy leg. I can call the close on both the buy leg and the sell leg, and then I'll just reset the equity start. I'll just copy this line. And I think that is everything. Let me just see if when I compile the whole GridTrader, if that works. I forgot the semicolon here. Right. That has compiled. So now I'll run the test and see how that works. So this is the GridTrader, and I can see a new input here, equity target in deposit currency. I'm going to start out with something small. I'll start with 10, which means that every time the equity has increased by $10 above the start point or above the last point, then it should close all the trades. Now at the end of that test, I can see that we do have the sawtooth type pattern. Obviously where there's been a bigger drawdown because the price has moved against us from the beginning, then the sawtooth is higher. But where it's remained reasonably flat, then we get smaller sawtooth. And here we can see again it's grown quite a bit and then a big drop back. The question is whether the total area here between the balance and the equity has reduced enough to save enough swap. If I look at the backtest total, the total net profit here is 1,397, where the basic grid had a profit of 5,021. The absolute drawdown of 411 is a little less than the base grid, which had a 578 absolute drawdown, but the maximum drawdown at 674 is significantly lower than the base grid of 1,991. I'm going to run some more tests and then just present the results. And for these extra tests, I'll run this at 50, 100, and then 200. Now those results are done, and I find it a little surprising. If you see the equity grab with a $10 profit, I get a total profit of $13.97, drawdown 411, maximum drawdown 674. Then when I extended that to 50, the total profit went down, absolute drawdown and max drawdown increased as I would expect. But then when I went to 100, profit went up again and the absolute drawdown came down. So I think a lot depends on the actual pattern of pricing during the test time period. And at equity 200, we had more profit again and a slightly higher absolute drawdown and a higher maximum drawdown. So I don't know that I can draw a lot of conclusion from this. And then I thought, well, why don't I try something very small? So I ran it again with just a $2 profit. And I got a smaller total profit than with the $10 equity. I got a lower maximum, or I got a lower absolute drawdown and a lower maximum drawdown. So maybe that's the way to go. If you look at the graphs that I got from these, and I can only get so many on screen at one time. So the top chart is the base chart, and then here's the chart for the $10 equity close. And you can see that we have reduced the gap, or at least it appears that we've reduced the gap between the equity and the balance. Now remember, these charts do scale automatically. So the base chart here has a maximum on it of 17,000, where the chart with the $10 drawdown has a maximum of 11,500. So don't treat these two literally. Then when I went to 50, I can see that there are bigger sawtooths here, but it also seems to be reducing the total space between the balance and the equity. If I go then to the next slide, I have, here's the 100, and again that seems to be reducing this total, the total swap space I'll call it, and the 200 as well. I have one more here where I've added in, here's the 10 that I tried initially, and here is the 2. Now the nice thing about cutting it down to the $2 equity close is that I get a very tight alignment between the balance and the equity. So I've really eliminated a lot of the swap on the drawdown. I only get these occasional peaks where it has entered trades and then gone into an immediate trend. But as soon as that trend begins to ease, it comes back again. And this is a nicer looking line if you're concerned about drawdowns. It doesn't prevent drawdown, but it does mean that that you're not paying swap for as long. But that is at the expense of the profit. So remember, if we go back to the profits, on a 15-month basis, just with the base trading, we had a profit of over $5,000 on a $10,000 account, which is 50%. Or, as I've said before, if you use the X-Rating incubator account, then this is on only a $1,000 initial deposit, so that's a 500% return. The equity close based on a $2 profit, though, still returns $1,123, which for a $1,000 deposit is 112% return. So that's still a good return over 15 months. So I'll leave that there. As I said, there are some things that you need to modify in the code. Let me jump back to the code. There are some things that you'll need to modify in this code if you want to run it live. The first will be that I have this equity start. Now that's an internal variable. In strategy testing, it's quite easy to have a variable like this and have it run for 15 months, but in real life, you are very likely to have some restarts in that 15-month period. So holding this equity start from beginning to end is just impractical. There will come a point where the expert restarts, and that will be reset to whatever the current account equity is, and you'll lose that track of profit made. So that needs to be fixed. That's a relatively simple fix. The other is what happens if you are running multiple symbols. So you're running the same expert for multiple symbols, because there is only one account equity. And I'm assuming that if you're running for 2 different symbols, you would want to close based on the profit made on each symbol, not just close everything as soon as you get to a total account equity. So I'll address both of those in a follow-up video. I'll also fix this issue where the base leg on its own won't compile because of this input magic in that follow-up video. So that's all for this video on the equity-based close. I hope you found it useful. If you have your own suggestions on how we can improve this grid trader, then please leave them in the comments. I'm going to try to work through as many of these as I can and show how to write the code to implement each of these modifications. So until we get to the next version, thank you for watching.